On today's episode of Cheating When Love Lies.
About 2 years ago, a guy friend of mine said to me, I know my best friend, and he would never, ever cheat on his wife. He just wouldn't do it. Because of this podcast, I'm sworn to secrecy, so I couldn't tell him that his best buddy was a flagrant philanderer who had cheated many times with many different women in both emotional and sexual affairs. As wives, husbands, partners, family members, and best friends, we can't imagine that someone we know would ever have an emotional or physical affair. This is why it's not uncommon that I hear from betrayed partners, I was blindsided when I found out. This is what happened to my guest, Shay.
I didn't see any signs of unhappiness or anything prior to the actual affair. But once the affair started, I started seeing his mannerisms and dispositions change, and I just could not let that pass. I knew something was wrong.
Shay is her real name because with the support of Shay's husband, they decided together that appearing on Cheating When Love Lies would be a part of Shay's healing. Beth Miller, relationship coach and owner of Soulify Wellness, is back to share her relationship expertise. Do you think that your partner would never, ever cheat on you? Well, so did Shay. Shay, thank you so much for coming on to Cheating When Love Lies. Beth and I would like to focus on this idea of being blindsided by an affair. It's not uncommon that we hear women say, quote, I had no idea that my husband or partner was having an affair, much less that he was even unhappy. But before we delve into that, please tell us when and for how long your husband was having an affair before you found out.
My husband started having an affair when he started a new job in April of this year. And I found out on May 7th. So it did not go on very long, and I attribute that to I trusted my gut. I didn't see any signs of unhappiness or anything prior to the actual affair, but once the affair started, I started seeing, his mannerisms and dispositions change, and I just could not let that pass. I knew something was wrong.
What mannerisms or behaviors changed?
We've always had a very open and honest marriage. Phones are a big thing in this, in society now.
Yeah,
and
it's everything.
I've always had his passcode. I've always we were comfortable leaving our phones with each other. And I just noticed, number one, he was on the phone more, and he was being more secretive with it. He would, so much so, I felt like he was either hiding it, he would even take it to the bathroom with him. There was never a time that phone was not on his person.
Yeah, that's always, I shouldn't say that's always, but that's often a sign, isn't it, Beth, when the phone starts disappearing?
Absolutely. It's a huge sign, right? In a healthy marriage, typically there's transparency and openness. And if your partner's in the same room, you're typically going to be communicating with them and not on your phone. So I would say that is a massive sign of something is happening, whether it's cheating or whether they're just kind of trying to escape from something in their life.
Oh, that's interesting that they're trying to escape, but not necessarily cheating. With whom, Shay, did your husband have the affair? Someone you know or a stranger?
It was a coworker, and I had no idea who she was. My husband had never known her before then. He works the type of job where he's on different job sites.
Oh, okay.
And so this was a new job site, and she was working from out of town. So she actually lives in a different state, and everything. So it was a complete stranger to me. And totally new acquaintance for him. So I had no idea who she was.
Had you ever met her or been introduced to her?
No.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said to Beth and today that you felt blindsided, like you didn't know this was happening, and yet you still said you noticed things with his phone. So that's a bit of a contradiction to me. What did you mean by saying you're blindsided if you did in fact observe behaviors about his phone?
The blindsided comes from the fact that I had no idea, or he says he was unhappy. I had no idea that was a thing. In fact, I thought our marriage was stronger and better than ever. Like, we had been through some, like, I joked, in your marriage vows, you say, for richer, for poor, sickness and health, good times and bad. Since December, we had been struggling financially. I went through a major health scare. My grandmother died. Like, we had been through it all, and he was my rock. Like, when I say perfect husband, I mean, I literally thought our marriage was, I was like, wow, we've been through all the hard times and we're stronger and better than ever. Like, there was never any indication of unhappiness or anything that would sway him to be unfaithful.
Mm-hmm.
I could not believe it. And even when I started seeing the phone things pop up, I went so far as to, I had been cheated on in the past, in a past relationship. Mm-hmm. And I went as far as to telling myself, oh, you are projecting this onto your husband. This is a you issue, not a him issue. Mm-hmm. Like, there was no way in my head that I thought my husband would be unfaithful.
Beth, how common is that you are in such a state of denial, you can't believe it, and then by consequence, you're blindsided?
Many of the ladies that I speak with echo the same idea, that they had no idea, that they're completely blindsided. And I think one of the myths out there is that affairs only happen to bad marriages. Sometimes affairs can just be a sign that their partner is going through something really deep. It's not necessarily a sign that something is deeply wrong with the marriage. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people in happy marriages do cheat, that there's something wrong with the spouse and it's not actually the wife or the marriage.
What would be an example of something Shay's husband could be going through, or any husband could be going through, that would drive them to have an affair? How does that become the solution?
Yeah, the number one would be mental health. So depression is a big one. We often see it as maybe midlife crisis. As humans, we often follow this path in life. For some of us, it feels like our purpose, but for others, they're just doing what others have told them to do. You go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you live in a certain town, you're close to your family. But after a while, that's not actually your authentic path. And it can catch up to you because you're exhausted with trying to do these things that don't actually feel good to you. They feel like chores, or they feel just like a disconnect from who you are. And so sometimes that's what leads to a midlife crisis, or can lead to depression. So you don't have the outlet, or you don't know how to process the feelings of deep sadness or even withdrawal in your life and with your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Shay, do you have another example beyond the phone where the hairs on the back of your neck stood up and you thought, this isn't the same husband I knew even 2-3 months ago?
I wouldn't say there was much after that. I don't want to say he was good at hiding it, but he was good at making me, and he's even admitted this, making me feel like it was me projecting.
Oh, wait, freeze frame on that. So was he gaslighting you? What did he do to make you believe that it was your issue and not, in fact, him, when it really was?
He straight up told me, oh, I'm not cheating, you're having some insecurities, things like that. And he's admitted to me now that was a defense mechanism for him. He's since apologized for it, but that's also one of the things that made me realize, like, even though he was trying to put it off on me, the husband that I knew, if I was hurting like that, he would have been like, what can I do? Like, I can't understand. Like, he would have been there trying to be a support. Yet this husband, this shell of a man that I just did not know, he was distancing himself. We were a team. If he was struggling, I was there for him. And if I was struggling, he was there for me. And so here I was in a struggle, and he was pushing away, not like him at all.
When he was blaming you, did you believe him? Did you think, oh yeah, it is me after all? Or was there a part of you that was thinking, no, it's not me?
He had me pretty convinced that it was me. I mean, I had a panic attack. Like, I was like, what am I doing? Because we'd never really had a rough patch in our marriage. Like, we never felt that disconnect. And I was feeling that disconnect from him. And I was like, what if it's me causing this? Finally, I just surrendered it to God. And I was like, if this is me, help me to overcome what issues I need to do. Help me to do the me work that I need to do. But if it's not me, please make things known that need to be known.
Okay, so how did they become known? You found something in the phone, someone told you. How did it become known that he was having an affair with this coworker?
He hid things very well. I wanted to try to get into his phone when he was asleep. It was literally like, it had to have been under his pillow. Like, there was no getting to it without him knowing. Mm-hmm. And so something in me said, get his car keys and go to his car. Like, just something said to do it. So I did it. I went out there and I searched his car and I didn't find anything. And I was about to go in and something said, no, go through his bag. And I went through his bag and I found his Apple Watch that had not been plugged in for a very long time. But when I went inside and charged it up, lo and behold, all the messages that were on his phone I could see from the Apple Watch, and I saw it all.
I just got to take a second on these voices that you have. Is this a talent that you have to know, or is it through your faith or spirituality that you're guided? Or Beth, do many women have this knowing voice in their heads that tells them, maybe not as explicitly, go to the garage or look in the bag, but do we have that inner voice guiding us? Because for you, Shay, it was a literal guidance to exactly what you needed to know.
This is a fantastic question. Do we have a whole nother hour to do this? But essentially, we all have intuition. We have this little voice within us, and it sounds little. It's very short. It might just say something like, go to the car. That's it. There's no other rationale, nothing else to it. And then your ego might chime in and be like, well, maybe that's not a good idea. He catches me, he'll be upset, he'll be mad at me, it'll cause more troubles. So that voice that has a long, long explanation, that's not the voice we need to listen to. We need to listen to that really short message. And often it only tells us a message for a short period of time, and then we lose that window. So I think it's great that she acted on it. Whether you want to say that voice is kind of channeled through us, through spirituality, through God, through universe, that's something that we can debate on another podcast, but we all have this little voice, and I often call it intuition, and we have to listen to it. It will guide you everywhere you need to go. When you follow that voice, exactly what you need is there, that next stepping stone.
That's incredible what you are saying about it being short, that it's short little spurts of information. What do you think, Shay? Because that was literally what happened to you. Go to the car, look in the bag.
Yes, it was go to the car, and literally when I was out there in the car, like she said, I had that big long sentence that was me. That was my ego saying, you're not going to find anything. He's going to catch you out here. Like, I had another huge long conversation, and as I'm walking into the house, I'm just like, you didn't check his bag. Like, oh, so I need to go to the bag. And then I found what I needed to find.
Wow. So then what happened? Did you go back to the bedroom, wake him up and confront him? Or how did you manage the information that you had found?
No, I waited to the next
No.
morning.
Oh my gosh. How did you do that? How did you wait?
I went because I was on a deep dive and I wanted to read every single thing, and which is another podcast for another time on should we really know that much information?
Well, no, let's address that now. You were reading through all of the messages because you wanted
I scrolled
to know?
to the very top. I scrolled to the very top and read every single thing. If they sent a song back and forth to each other, I was on YouTube listening and looking up the lyrics to the song. I mean, I was deep diving. I wanted to know what was going on.
Oh my!
And try to get into the psyche of it, you know.
And how would you characterize their relationship? Was it very flirty and light? Was it deeper and more emotional? Was it more sexy? How would you sum up the relationship that they were having?
Flirty and light and sneaky, because she was also married.
Okay. Yeah.
I think what Shay was doing was building her case. It's like a lawyer. She was trying to figure out the truth because for so long she was told, maybe quote unquote, that she's crazy, that she's fabricating all this. So she needed to know all the details. I think anyone listening would be like, I'm going to go in there and wake my husband up right now. But she probably needed to make sure she fully understood it and could process it and try to make sense of it on her own level before she confronted him. She had to come up with her strategy. How is she going to approach him?
Strategy for what? What were you thinking that you were going to do in that moment once you had read the text?
When I first read the text, I was just shaking and started crying. Then, like Beth said, I was like, I need to know. I have to know what was going on. I wanted to be able to look back to see when it started because when I confronted him, he might not know that I know all these details. I wanted to see, you know, is he gonna lie to me about it? Is he gonna, I mean, I wanted to be, I've always been that type of, even in school, you know, want to be the star student. I want to be prepared. And I was like, I'm going to be prepared going into this. I've already been blindsided enough. I'm going to take control of what I can control.
When did you finally confront him? I mean, you were up probably all night looking at these texts.
The next morning.
Okay.
The next morning I confronted him, and my daughter was asleep and she woke up. And so like we had to stop mid-conversation. I called a family member and I said, you need to come get my daughter right now. And that way she was out of the house.
How old is your daughter?
And then she will be 5 on Halloween.
Oh, a baby. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. She's little. So I needed to get her out of the way. And then we continued talking for the next couple hours. So.
And was he forthcoming and honest? Because I'm imagining you're asking him questions, waiting to see if it's going to match up with what you've read. Huh?
I mean, when I asked him about like when it started, he was honest about those things. Anything deeper, I don't know. As far as like telling me any big answers, no.
What do you mean by big answers?
Like the deep questions, like, why did you do this? What led you to this? You know,
never got that answer?
Oh, I've got them now. Yes.
Okay. But at that moment, he was evasive.
He knew that I knew her first name because that's what was in the phone.
Right.
He wouldn't tell me her last name. He wouldn't tell me anything about her. So
then you go immediately to Beth. And how is it that you and Beth are able to get him to share the complete truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I don't think there will ever be a time that a husband will share completely the whole truth. He has been very forthcoming. Because, I mean, I think there's some things that I try to put myself in his shoes, and I don't even know if I was in that position, would I know truly what fully led me to that, because I can't even comprehend it.
How does one forgive their husband, Beth, if you don't even know why?
So do you need to know why your husband cheated, betrayed you so that you can move on? Well, technically, no, you could still move on without the why. But for a lot of us, our analytical mind will chime in and want to know why so that you can prevent it from happening again. But technically, you don't need to know the why, because the why will take you to the past. And what we really want to do is focus on the future, or really our present right now in this moment. Can I choose to trust? Do I see forward momentum? Do I want to work on this marriage? Do I have another try in me?
What sort of superficial responses were you able to glean from your husband, Shay?
He had said that he had been unhappy for years. And
years.
Yeah. All of these things.
After what you said, that he was your mom.
And even now, looking back, all the things that he told me right in the beginning, and they're not, I think they were defense mechanisms for him, trying to make him feel better for what he did, because he's since told me, he was in a vulnerable place. He had a lot of mental, like Beth mentioned earlier, there was some mental health issues that were going on.
Okay.
He had been on a medication and he stopped cold turkey. He started drinking heavily. He started a new job. Mm-hmm. He had not been feeling good about himself. And it was more of a him issue, not an our marriage or me issue.
Mm-hmm. But let me interrupt there. Before Shay got those answers that it was a him issue, she had a lot of doubt. She was trying to figure out what she had done wrong. Like thoughts such as, what did I do to make him not love me? Am I annoying to him? Does he not care about me? Why is he not trying? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? Mm-hmm. Is it me physically? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of questions going around so that she could figure out, was it actually her?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And that, I feel like that was one of the hardest things for me to accept, Beth, was that it was not me. I begged. I said, please tell me something that I can fix. And finally, one day, he just got really vulnerable with me, and he was like, what makes you think that this had anything to do with you? Mm. It was a him issue.
Mm-hmm. That is very vulnerable. Sad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was not in a good place. And that's also one of the reasons that made me stay, was because the man that I was looking at was not my husband. The man that was in front of me was not my husband, and I was fighting for my husband, not the shell of the man that was sitting in front of me.
Beth?
So Shay's a fixer. She's a doer. She's an A-type personality. When there's a problem, I would hire her in a second to fix it. So now that she knows that the issue isn't her, it's her husband, it made her feel really powerless. She's like, I can't fix this. So she needed to learn how to step back, how to surrender, how to not control the situation. And so she used an incredible strategy called SMART contact. I believe it comes from Marriage Helper. But one of the primary focuses of SMART contact is to stop the pushing behavior. She had to have incredible self-discipline, taking note of all her thoughts, because she needed to really manage what we call business items. She needed to allow him to start conversation. She needed to start responding in a really kind and loving way. She had to gain his trust that she was a safe place for him to come to. And so that is really tricky for a lot of women to do, is just to surrender and let their husband be. Because if you don't have your hand on the pulse, you feel like, what if I just lose him? Like, I need to be in it all the time, like asking him questions. But she stepped back, and it's incredible what she did.
Yes, it really is. Now, where are you in the relationship? It sounds like you've decided to stay and work on it.
Yes. I would characterize us in like full-blown reconciliation. He knew from the very beginning that I was here to fight and to stay, which is weird. I always thought that if I ever found my husband cheating, it would be done. And I think a lot of women think that.
Yes.
But when you are absolutely just put in the situation, every woman's going to respond differently. And I responded with, I can't just turn off the love that I feel for this man. And I didn't think that that was him. He was going through something, and I automatically trusted my intuition again, because I knew that the man that was sitting in front of me was not him, that I would get my husband back, and I had to, I was going to fight for that. So I was fighting from the beginning, and it took him a little while to, like Beth said, there in the beginning, I was push. I was full blown, I'm going to fix this. What can we do? Like, how can we, I was pushing him.
Meaning what exactly? How did that occur? He would come home from work and you'd say, okay, let's talk about it. Or
as soon as he walked in the door, I was like,
interrogating.
Hey, why didn't you text me today? Like, what are we not going to, do you think our marriage is going to survive? Tell me how you're feeling. Like, I was always pushing for something. And the sad part is I wasn't getting anything. That's why I was pushing. But I had to take that moment to realize. And even at one point, he told me, he was like, why do you think I want to go away? He was like, because at one point he did leave the home. But he told me, he goes, why would I want to stay when as soon as I walk in the door, there's never a moment of peace? And I had to really take note of, okay, would I want to live like that? And so, as a betrayed wife, it's so hard.
Because you want answers
out there. Yeah, any woman who's out there pushing, don't feel like you are like in the wrong. Like, you have every right, but you also have to, I had to really do a lot of self-reflection and be like, okay, I need to push back. I need to pull back.
So Beth, give us an example, like if you could role play it, as opposed to having the husband or wife, could be the wife, walk in the door and start the interrogation. Why didn't you text me? Why didn't you call me? Do you think this is going to survive? What is the technique that you're referring to? What is it that you do? You allow the person to come home and you say nothing? Like, what do you do?
I would avoid talking about feelings. Just come in and talk about your day. How was work?
Okay.
Talk about the kids, not business items like paying the bills. Talk about the news. Talk about something you saw on social media, like a really funny reel. Keep things really light. Take it day by day, and also allow them to respond. Even allow them to have questions as well. But if they don't have any questions, like if they are in a depressive state, giving them that space. And the simple question is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to help you right now? And if they say no, we just got to accept it.
Because
in that moment for today.
I love that. Yeah. In that moment for today, and eventually they'll come around.
I'm going to add to that.
Yes.
They don't always come around. They don't. Oh, they don't always come around in the time that you need them to come around. So that's when we have to set boundaries. So we can't just play this game of, I'll just let you have your space. No, because you're going to feel really out of control. You're going to feel really resentful. Your thoughts are going to be like going rampant. And so what you have to do in this situation is set a boundary. So whether it's a timeline, so whether it's, I'm going to check in with you every week. I know Shay, she did it every 2 weeks on Sundays is the day she wanted to check in with him. And she would check in with herself being like, okay, where am I at now with just letting him be? And I think that's really important, is setting boundaries, because this can't go on forever. You can't be in what I call limbo land, where you're in limbo land and you're just waiting for them. Like, that keeps you feeling out of control.
Right. Yeah. And so Shay, how long did it take?
How long did it take him once I started Smart Contact? I started off with just 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, I did have struggles. Even throughout that 2 weeks, Beth would encourage me, are you truly comfortable? Is your authentic self telling you this is right? And she would say, check in with yourself. And I had set the goal and I wanted to stick to it. It's not that I just didn't talk to him, but I did not bring up relationship stuff at all for the 2 weeks. During that 2 weeks, he slipped in a few things, like,
like
what? Well, at one point, I remember we were sitting on the couch and he was struggling mentally. And I, like Beth said, I didn't bring up the relationship, but I just was like, is there any way that I can be here for you? And at one point, before this, anytime we talked about like marriage or something, he would say that he thought it was over. There's no way this could work. And I don't even know how we went from talking about his mental state to our relationship. Mm-hmm. But he was like, you do know that it needs to go slow, that we're going to have to start as just friends again.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
And I was
that
like,
would be hard to hear. Yeah.
I was like, and I did everything we asked Beth, everything within me was screaming, I need to tell him, no, we're not. But I just was like, well, okay. I just kind of pulled back and allowed him to process whatever emotion he was going through. The Shay of 2 weeks before would have like jumped all over that.
Right.
And as Beth would tell you, I would push. We'd have a conversation that was constant, just word vomit. I would just go and go and go. I would just word vomit all over the conversation. And we would get nowhere. Absolutely nowhere.
Interesting. Less is more. Are there any big events that are happening in your life with your husband?
Yeah, my husband has fully committed now to working on our marriage. He has admitted all of his wrongdoings. He says, that, he's done a lot of wrong things in his life, but this is definitely one that he will struggle with for a while because he's very remorseful over what happened and that he does love me and he wants to make this work. And, he said he's here for the long haul if I'll have him. And of course I do want that. I'm seeing more and more every day glimpses of the man that I fought for. So that is a big, he's done a complete 180. We have, he started going back to church with me, which has been a very good thing for us.
Very helpful.
There's talks of growing our family, which is something that we wanted before this, but of course, so there's that. He's even agreed to go on our family vacation at the end of the month, which is a big deal because that includes my mom and sisters, which know about the affair. So he's putting himself, that's kind of,
in the line of fire.
Learning to integrate yourself back into the family that knows what happened.
Beth, you get the final word.
Shay is incredible. And the reason why she's so incredible, she handled the situation with such poise. When she felt extremely emotional, she'd go to her journal. When she felt extremely disconnected, ungrounded, she went to prayer or she went inward. Instead of, like she says, she had moments of word vomit where she would then quickly feel regret or fear that she was pushing him away. And so she noticed her patterns and she quickly corrected them. She had the ability, she saved her marriage. She transformed herself to transform her marriage. So it's just incredible to see how far she's come. And because of that, he's been able to come with her. Her vibration raised his vibration so that he could then open his heart again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a success story. And I always love a good happy ending and a success story on Cheating When Love Lies. Shay, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story so openly. And Beth, as usual, you give the best counsel. We thank Beth Miller of Soulify Wellness. And thank you all for listening to Cheating When Love Lies.
Thanks, Jillian.
Thank you for listening to Cheating When Love Lies. Please continue to subscribe, rate, and share. And I always love to hear from you at jillianhamilton.online. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.
I love reality TV on Pluto TV.
Same, and I love that it's free.
It gives me the freedom to watch Bravo's Real Housewives Vault channel.
I'm totally free to watch Bad Girls Club.
I'm free for Jersey Shore.
Love and Hip Hop, I'm free all day.
Survivor, I'm free all night.
With hundreds of free reality shows, you are totally free to watch what you love on Pluto TV.
Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Pure exploitation, ineptly made, and completely repulsive.
Hi, I'm Bobcat Goldthwait.
And I'm Sean McKittrick.
And Zero Stars is our podcast where we look at our bad reviews and...
the bad reviews of anybody who will join us here. Michael McKeon, Eddie Wong.
Welcome, Eli.
Feels like a film that's shown up to the party over a decade after it ended.
Listen to, follow, rate, and review 0 Stars now. Do my bidding. And you can do that wherever you get your podcast.